Hello everybody, welcome back to the Ultimate Goosebumps Man channel, and today I am bringing you another book review, this time for Stay Out of the Basement. I'm really excited to review this book because it's a book I've been wanting to talk about for a while. I've read it like 3 weeks ago at this point, and I just haven't been able to get around to reviewing it because I've been very busy with finals, and I just got back for Christmas break and everything, so I finally have some more time to film videos. So I decided I was going to start by doing my review for Stay Out of the Basement. Now, I am very behind. As you know, I have read 3 books since, I'm on my 3rd book, but I've read 3 books since I last filmed my Welcome to Dead House episode review. I've read Stay Out of the Basement, Monster Blood, and I am currently reading Say Cheese and Die. It's a really good book. Not going to get too much in depth on either of these until I film my reviews for them. And so you know, those are coming soon. But first, I have to finish, again, reviewing this, as well as the episode for Stay Out of the Basement, because it's another episode that I loved. So, starting off with the plot for this book, as I did with Welcome to Dead House, this book follows Margaret and Casey Brewer. They are siblings, and their dad is a scientist, botanist in particular, and he does a lot of experiments down in the basement. Their mom has gone out of town to visit, I think, a sick aunt, I think it was. I don't remember for sure, but I believe it was a sick aunt. And their dad has been acting very strange. He locks himself in the basement a lot of the time, doesn't tell them anything about his experiments. And Margaret in particular is very suspicious about this and tries to investigate more. And a lot of times she lures her brother Casey as well into going to the basement and checking things out. One morning after their mom leaves and their dad goes to take her to the airport, Margaret and Casey sneak down into the basement after they hear some strange moaning and crying. And they find not much really, but Margaret is grabbed by some plants, which really kind of freaks her out. And so they rush back upstairs, and there's a whole mystery surrounding this story. There are some weird things going on with her dad. I won't spoil too much about it, but Margaret spots Dr. Brewer, her father, acting very strange, doing some very creepy and bizarre things that she can't really explain. And yeah, this sets off this whole adventure from trying to find out what is wrong with their father. This is another very dark book. I actually have Welcome to Dead House right here. But yeah, both of these books, for starting in the Goosebumps series, were very strong starts. I think they did a great job building up tension, having a lot of creepy moments. I do think Welcome to Dead House is better, personally. But, again, I think this is a great book overall. There's a lot of really interesting moments that I didn't really expect from a Goosebumps book, because this is actually the first time I've read this entirely. I've had this book for years now, but I haven't fully read it until now. And there's a lot of really interesting moments. I think Margaret is a really good character, and this book is actually written in 3rd person. And it's the very first Goosebumps book to do that, as Welcome to Dead House was written from Amanda's perspective. And the interesting thing is, the next 3 books in the series that I've read so far have been all in 3rd person. Stay Out of the Basement, Monster Blood, and currently Say Cheese and Die. All 3 of these books have been in 3rd person perspective, which is really interesting. Now, a lot of Goosebumps books are written in 1st person, so it's always really intriguing to read a book that's written from an outside perspective that doesn't really have anything to do with the story. It's just kind of a narrator describing everything happening, which I think is really cool. This cover is also one of my favorites. I remember seeing this back in elementary school in our library. This is one of the ones that really kind of unnerved me as a kid. I never really picked up the book, and maybe did like once and brought it home, but I never actually read it because I was too scared to read it. But I have very fond memories of this cover, seeing it in the elementary school library. Probably one of the first Goosebumps covers I ever saw, because I know my library in elementary school, we only had about 3 Goosebumps books. They had Stay Out of the Basement, The Curse of Camp Cold Lake, and Why I'm Afraid of Bees. Now, The Curse of Camp Cold Lake's cover also terrified me, but I can get into more of that down the road whenever I manage to read the book and review it and show it off, because I don't actually have it in my collection yet, which is really sad because it's one of my favorites. But yeah, getting off topic, back to Stay Out of the Basement. There's a lot of really great things about this book. I will say there are some moments maybe go a little too slowly. There's not a lot of really genuinely scary stuff that happens in here, like Welcome to Dead House. I will say there are some ideas that can be scary, like being home alone with a adult, particularly a parent figure, who is acting strange and is just not right in the head and may be insane. I think that aspect is really scary, especially when you're thinking this from the perspective of a kid who relies on their parents all the time to provide for them and care for them. It's pretty unnerving when you think about it from that perspective. And there are some gory moments, mainly towards the finale, that kind of involve in how they solve the problem and defeat the monster, which has, of course, something to do with this hand coming out of the basement door. I'm not going to say what it is because I want you to read the book for yourself to find out. And also, fun fact about this cover, forgot to mention, this was not illustrated by Tim Jacobus, like the majority of Goosebumps covers are. There's only 2 books in the entire original series that Tim Jacobus did not illustrate. Just for an example, this is Tim Jacobus's art, which is much more saturated. It's dark. Pretty much every cover was illustrated by Tim Jacobus, as I mentioned, aside from Stay Out of the Basement, which is illustrated by an artist named Jim Thiessen. And there was also Be Careful What You Wish For, which I also do not own. And I don't know the cover artist for that one. But just a little fun piece of Goosebumps trivia. Because everybody just kind of thinks Tim Jacobus illustrated all of the original series, which, I mean, for the most part he did. But there's just a couple books that he did not do. This is one of them. Although there was a 2003 to 2006, I think those are the years when they reprinted a lot of these Goosebumps books with revamped, mainly cover borders. They used a lot of the same art, but Be Careful What You Wish For and Stay Out of the Basement got new covers that were illustrated by Tim Jacobus, and I don't think they're as good. I prefer this cover heavily. This is the one that's nostalgic for me. It's iconic. And of course, Brandon Dorman tried to recreate this cover in his wave of Goosebumps books, which again was not great. I'm not a big fan of any of the Brandon Dorman covers. I have a couple of them in my collection, but I do also have the original versions, which I much prefer. But overall, Stay Out of the Basement was a really great book. I would probably give it a solid 8 out of 10. Same ranking I had for Welcome to Dead House. Now, my next video, I will be reviewing the episode for Stay Out of the Basement, which I'm really excited for because I love this episode. I thought it was better than the book. I'll get into more of that during my episode review. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at this, and I hope you all have a scary day, and I'll see you all next time.